Donald Trump ordered the assassination of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in a brazen, illegal strike, and now we're drowning in the exact bloody, endless quagmire progressives screamed would happen.
What Trump and Netanyahu sold as a clean, 4-week knockout punch has already exploded into its 5th horrific day. Iranian missiles are still pounding targets, more American troops are coming home in coffins, gas is rocketing towards $6 a gallon, and there is zero exit strategy. Just chaos, death, and a war Trump swore would be quick and surgical. This is the disaster we warned about. Another Republican ego trip dragging America into forever war while working families pay the price in blood, debt, and skyrocketing bills. By early Saturday, February 28th, Trump's B-2 bombers and Israeli jets unleashed Operation Epic Fury, dropping more than 1,000 precision-guided munitions on Iranian soil and killing Khamenei, 86, right in his Tehran office, along with top IRGC commanders, according to Pentagon and US Central Command briefings. Iranian state media confirmed the death within hours, plunging the country into 40 days of official mourning, while hardliners immediately vowed total revenge. This is a catastrophe unfolding in real time because Trump's unilateral, unauthorized, preemptive war has provoked a ferocious Iranian counterattack that's already killed 6 US service members, 4 Army reservists named Tuesday in Kuwait after a drone strike, and wounded dozens more at bases across the region. If this drags on, and every sign points to it dragging on much longer, we're staring at a multi-front disaster that will claim thousands more lives, divert billions from healthcare, climate action, and housing, and deliver the worst energy shock since the 1970s oil embargo. The strike was cooked up in the White House war room. Barely settled into his second term, Trump greenlit the joint US-Israeli operation to decapitate Iran's leadership and gut its military capabilities. Stealth bombers punched through Iranian airspace, pounding missile sites, nuclear facilities, and command centers with 2,000-pound bunker busters. Khamenei was struck dead in his office, per official after-action reports. Trump couldn't resist gloating on Truth Social. "We got him before he got me." He branded Khamenei one of the most evil people in history and boasted the whole thing could wrap in 4 weeks or less, according to his Daily Mail interview. If this unfolding catastrophe, Trump's illegal war, skyrocketing gas prices, dead American troops, and a Middle East on fire is already hitting you hard, then stick with us. Hit that like button right now if you're as outraged as we are about another reckless Republican adventure that's costing lives and livelihoods while big oil cashes in. Drop a quick comment below. How is this war already affecting your wallet, your family, or your community? And if you want real-time analyses that cut through the spin the moment facts drop, smash subscribe and turn on notifications. This wasn't defense. It was textbook regime change adventurism without a shred of congressional approval, echoing the Soleimani assassination in 2020 and the limited nuclear site strikes in 2025. Progressives immediately recognized the pattern. Trump using foreign crises to distract from domestic failures, stalled healthcare expansion, climate rollbacks, soaring inequality, while risking American blood and treasure for personal bravado and fossil fuel profits. Iran hit back hard and fast. President Masoud Pezeshkian called the killing an open declaration of war. The IRGC flooded state TV with threats of unlimited retaliation. Massive crowds filled Tehran squares, chanting "Death to America" and clutching portraits of the slain leader. A prominent Shiite cleric issued a fatwa calling for jihad, as reported by Al Jazeera. Hardliners rushed to form an interim council, but the scars of the 2025 to 2026 protests, where an estimated 30,000 Iranians were killed, meant many ordinary people were quietly questioning both the regime and the foreign bombs raining down. Iranian ballistic missiles and drones targeted US bases in Iraq, Jordan, and Kuwait, where the first 3 American deaths occurred, plus naval facilities in Bahrain. Additional strikes hit sites in Qatar and Oman. In Israel, barrages killed 9 civilians in a direct hit on a synagogue in Beit Shemesh, according to the Associated Press, with shrapnel raining on Tel Aviv and Haifa, pushing the civilian toll to 11 dead and 28 wounded. Netanyahu vowed to strike thousands more targets and urged Iranians to rise up against their tyranny. Progressives condemned US complicity in Israeli actions as enabling endless occupation and now pulling America into yet another forever war. The immediate fallout was devastating. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE slammed their airspace shut after projectiles crossed borders, grounding commercial flights and stranding thousands of passengers. Dubai International Airport sustained shrapnel damage, per Reuters. Qatar and Oman reported explosions nearby. 4 civilian deaths were confirmed across Gulf states. Iran's Revolutionary Guards broadcast warnings to shipping. No passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Major carriers, including Hapag-Lloyd, immediately suspended transits, leaving 150 tankers idling outside the strait. Oil futures surged toward $100 a barrel, a 25% jump in days, mirroring the 1987 tanker war's 40% spike. Trump kept doubling down. He addressed the nation, promising to avenge our fallen heroes until objectives are met, and claimed 48 Iranian leaders had been eliminated based on CIA intelligence. The nation questioned whether the initial US troop deaths were genuine pretext for a premeditated operation. Progressives pointed out that Trump's recycled imminent threat rhetoric from the Soleimani killing was being deployed again, without congressional consent or evidence shared publicly. As Iranian barrages continued, Hezbollah launched rockets from Lebanon in solidarity, prompting Israeli counterstrikes that killed 23 in Beirut suburbs. Houthi drones targeted Saudi Arabia and the UAE, with debris injuring 4 in Jeddah. Syrian regime-aligned militias mobilized near the Golan Heights. This was the inevitable blowback from Trump's preemption doctrine, seen earlier in the January 3, 2026 Venezuela raid that captured Maduro on narco charges, overextending US power and fracturing alliances. Global markets convulsed. Asian stocks shed trillions in value. The International Energy Agency warned that a prolonged Hormuz closure would remove 21 million barrels daily, far worse than the 1973 embargo, and threaten worldwide stagflation. Brookings Institution analysts highlighted risks to the Abraham Accords, with UAE and Bahrain facing domestic unrest over hosting US operations. In American cities, protesters flooded the streets chanting against Trump's oil war, viewing it as corporate profiteering masked as national security. The world held its breath as UN Security Council sessions deadlocked. Russia and China vetoed any resolution that failed to condemn the original US strike as a sovereignty violation. China's foreign minister called it hegemonic bullying, aligning with progressive critiques of neo-colonialism. Noam Chomsky, writing in The Guardian, labelled the entire operation a continuation of America's disastrous interventionism, drawing direct parallels to Vietnam and Iraq, where unchecked executive power produced quagmires costing trillions and millions displaced. Domestically, Democratic opposition reached 68% in Pew polls, with many seeing the strike as election year theatre amid Trump's ongoing legal battles. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went viral on TikTok, calling it a distraction from indictments and climate failures. The Squad amplified calls for impeachment, citing repeated violations of the War Powers Resolution. Inside Iran, streets filled with millions mourning Khamenei. But Amnesty International documented renewed crackdowns on protesters in Tehran suburbs. Progressives expressed sympathy for ordinary Iranians, punished for their leaders' actions, just as sanctions have starved civilians for years. As Tuesday night wore on, the war Trump and Netanyahu promised would end in weeks showed every sign of becoming the endless quagmire progressives have feared since day one. Iranian forces, battered but unbowed, kept up their retaliation, launching fresh barrages that exposed how badly the initial US-Israeli strikes underestimated Tehran's resilience and reach. On March 2nd and into March 3rd, Iranian ballistic missiles slammed into Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest US military installation in the Middle East, causing confirmed structural damage, though no immediate casualties were reported, per Qatari authorities and Reuters. A suspected Iranian drone struck the grounds of the US consulate in Dubai. State Department officials said all personnel were accounted for, but the attack sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. In Israel, missiles hit central areas Tuesday, with impacts reported in populated zones, despite Iron Dome intercepts, adding to the civilian toll that now stands at least 16 dead and dozens wounded, according to Israeli rescue services. Hezbollah intensified rocket fire from southern Lebanon into northern Israel, while Houthi drones targeted Saudi oil infrastructure near Abqaiq, briefly disrupting output and sending fresh tremors through energy markets. Syrian regime-aligned militias mobilized near the Golan Heights, raising the spectre of a true multi-front war, amplified by modern precision weapons and drone swarms, far deadlier than the 1973 Yom Kippur conflict. US and Israeli counterstrikes continued unabated Tuesday, hitting Iranian leadership compounds, missile production sites, and internal security headquarters, per CNN and Reuters reporting. Trump claimed on Truth Social that most Iranian military installations have been knocked out, and boasted new strikes targeted potential successors to Khamenei. Israel confirmed hitting a compound linked to selecting Iran's next supreme leader. Yet the operations architects now quietly acknowledged harder hits ahead, with Trump telling reporters the timeline could stretch weeks. Clear evidence the 4 weeks or less promise was wishful thinking. Joy Reid on MSNBC called it classic Trump. Promise quick victory, deliver quagmire, arguing the lack of congressional authorization and transparent intel made this another unconstitutional adventure. This isn't liberation, it's ego and oil profits at the expense of American lives and global stability, she said, resonating with viewers exhausted by post-9/11 militarism. Representative Cori Bush tweeted that the strikes were Imperial Overreach, warning the blowback would fuel anti-American sentiment for generations while diverting resources from domestic crises like healthcare and housing. Iran strikes are disgusting and evil, said longtime Trump ally and MAGA stalwart Tucker Carlson. Iran's interim council struggled to maintain cohesion amid the chaos. State media broadcast massive mourning processions for Khamenei, drawing millions to the streets. But intelligence leaks suggested fractures. Some IRGC units reportedly hesitated on orders, and pockets of the 2025 to 2026 uprising resurfaced despite heavy Basij suppression. Amnesty International documented fresh crackdowns on demonstrators chanting against both the regime and foreign aggression, highlighting how ordinary Iranians were caught in the crossfire. Oil markets didn't just spike, they detonated. Brent crude settled at $81.40 on Tuesday, up 4.7% in a single day and 12% since the conflict began, marking the highest level since January 2025, per Reuters. Insurance firms refused coverage for vessels near Hormuz, forcing reroutes around the Cape of Good Hope that added weeks and millions in costs. US gasoline prices approached $6 a gallon in parts of California and New York, hammering working families already squeezed by inflation. The International Energy Agency warned a prolonged blockade would remove 21 million barrels daily, far exceeding the 1973 embargo's impact, and threaten global stagflation. Middle East aviation descended into chaos. Flight Radar 24 reported over 21,300 flight cancellations at major regional airports since Saturday, with airspace fully or partially closed in Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Tens of thousands of passengers were stranded, rerouted, or left in limbo. European allies voiced growing alarm, but refused to join the fight. France and Germany condemned the unilateral US action and called for immediate de-escalation and UN mediation, per their foreign ministers. The EU's Aspides naval mission confirmed tankers turning back en masse, underscoring Europe's energy vulnerability. The Guardian ran scathing pieces on Trump's cowboy diplomacy, comparing it to Bush-era disasters that destabilized the region for decades. China condemned the strikes as unacceptable and a serious violation of sovereignty, pledging support for Iran's defensive rights without committing military aid. Russia labelled the operation unprovoked aggression and a cynical violation of international law, offering verbal backing but no direct involvement. India called for restraint and an immediate ceasefire to protect shipping lanes. Pakistan condemned both the initial US-Israeli strikes and Iran's attacks on Gulf states. Turkey closed its airspace to US military flights, citing civilian flight risks, and criticized Iran's Gulf strikes as poorly targeted. Afghanistan's Taliban issued no official statement, but quietly reinforced border positions amid fears of spillover instability. In the US, protests swelled in major cities. Thousands marched in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago under banners reading "No War for Oil" and "Trump's Forever War." The Democratic Socialists of America organized rallies, with speakers decrying the conflict as corporate profiteering disguised as security. While working families struggle with inflation, Trump's bombing Iran to prop up fossil fuel giants, one organizer charged, capturing the economic rage fueling public opposition. As explosions continued rocking Gulf capitals and airspace remained restricted across multiple nations, the conflict's momentum showed no sign of slowing. Israel's forces pressed deeper, striking central Tehran command nodes, while Iran's degraded but still lethal arsenal kept the pressure on. The question loomed larger than ever. Could this ever-escalating war topple the regime, or was it only igniting a broader catastrophe that would haunt the region and America for generations? As the conflict grinds into its sixth day with no resolution in sight, the toll mounts and the cracks in the US-Israeli strategy become impossible to ignore. What Trump pitched as a swift, decisive blow to end Iran's threat is proving far more protracted and costly, exactly the kind of prolonged entanglement progressives have condemned as predictable fallout from unchecked militarism. US and Israeli air defenses are under severe strain. Analysts from the Stimson Center and Al Jazeera report that interceptor missile stocks, Patriot, THAAD, SM-6, are depleting rapidly after days of near-constant barrages. The US could run low on vital interceptors within weeks if the pace continues, forcing difficult choices between protecting troops, allies, and civilians, or preserving readiness against Russia and China. Gulf states like Qatar and UAE have reportedly requested replenishments from Washington, but been stonewalled, per Middle East Eye sources, leaving them exposed as Iranian drones and missiles keep coming. Israel's Iron Dome and Arrow systems, already stressed from the 2025 war, are burning through reserves faster than production can keep up. War fatigue is settling in visibly. In Israel, reservists face extended call-ups with no clear end. Hospitals in Tel Aviv and Haifa are overwhelmed. US troops at bases like Al Udeid report mounting stress amid sustained alerts. Domestic polls show Democratic opposition at 68%, Pew, with protests growing in US cities under slogans like "No More Forever Wars." The Democratic Socialists of America rallies decry the conflict as corporate profiteering, with speakers highlighting how diverted billions could fund Medicare for all instead of bombs. Trump's assurances to shipping firms ring hollow amid the chaos. On Tuesday, he announced the US would provide government-backed political risk insurance through the International Development Finance Corporation, and that the Navy could escort tankers through Hormuz, if necessary, per his Truth Social post and Reuters reporting. Yet marine insurers, including Guard, Skuld, North Standard, cancelled war risk coverage for Gulf waters effective March 5th, leaving shipowners exposed. Reuters reported at least 3 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 vessels stranded outside the strait. Oil supertanker rates hit all-time highs, per CNBC, as owners avoid the route entirely despite Trump's promises. Trump also floated talks, claiming Iran sought negotiations but rejecting them as too late amid the fighting, per his statements reported by multiple outlets including YouTube clips and Palestine Chronicle. Iran flatly rejected any dialogue, with Supreme National Security Council Secretary Ali Larijani denouncing Trump's offers as delusional fantasies and insisting Tehran would not negotiate under bombardment. The economic pain deepens daily. Brent crude settled at $81.40 Tuesday, up 12% since the conflict began, driving US gas towards $6 a gallon in high-cost states. If you're as furious as we are about Trump's reckless imperialism, then stand up with us right now. Smash that like button if you reject this madness. Drop a comment below. Let's show the warmongers that we're not staying silent. And if you want raw, unfiltered analyses that expose the real costs of Trump's chaos the moment it breaks, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're in this fight together, against the forever war machine, and for a world where working people come first.